This is Regan. Regan is the new dynasty. Everybody loves Regan. He made peace with the enemies. He helps to appoint locals to a position of power.
You get promoted.
He gave land to peasants. He built brand new irrigation systems, canals, and roads. He even repaired defensive walls. Yes, Regan truly is a great new dynasty. But time passes, and one day Regan becomes the aging dynasty. Regan neglects government duties. He ignores corrupt officials. He loses control of the provinces. He even lets the defensive walls get destroyed. Why, he even ups the taxes on peasants who can buy himself a brand new iPhone. Yes, nobody likes Regan, the aging dynasty. Regan has lost the mandate of heaven. The gods are very unhappy with him. His land is plagued by hostile invaders.
Oh no!
Floods, famine, and earthquakes destroy the kingdom. Bandits are raiding his provinces. Why, even peasants have started to revolt.
Oh no, wait.
Regan's dynasty has been overthrown. In his place, Tom takes the mandate of heaven and becomes the new dynasty. This is Tom. Everybody loves Tom. If you're confused on what you just watched, you've probably never heard of the dynastic cycle, which would be a little dumb. I mean, we did a big unit on that a couple of weeks back, and we had that on the test, but regardless, let's go over it in detail. The dynastic cycle was a quote-unquote system used by Chinese emperors and dynasties to determine when a dynasty's time was to rule, to fall, or to rise. It had 3 essential stages. The cycle had 3 essential steps with transitions: the new dynasty, the old dynasty, and the problems that occur in between them. Each step had a couple defining features. For example, the new dynasty is, obviously, what happens when a new powerful dynasty rises and commits acts worthy of a dynasty that deserves to stay in power. These include restoring and bringing peace, rebuilding the infrastructure. This can include appointing land to officials and building canals, irrigation systems, and roads. Giving land to peasants. This gains the favor of them. And protecting people by building an army and rebuilding the walls. As time passes, the dynasty loses the flair that it had when it was a new dynasty and eventually becomes an old, or more properly, an aging dynasty. When this happens when the dynasty passes over time and becomes less effective. This includes taxing people too much, usually in order to buy luxury. They stop protecting people. They let the walls fall, they let invaders in. They let the infrastructure decay. They lose control of their provinces as well. They start imposing heavy, corrupt laws and taxes. This isn't here, but they also neglect government duties and ignore corrupt officials. When this happens, when the old or aging dynasty begins to experience these problems, they lose the mandate of heaven. When this happens, the gods show their rage by provoking floods and earthquakes, having peasants revolt, having invaders attack empires, having bandits raid the provinces. These problems show that the gods are unhappy with the current dynasty and would like to see it change, and hence we go to a new dynasty claiming the mandate of heaven, restarting the cycle all over again. So where exactly does the mandate of heaven fit into all this? Well, around step 4. But what exactly is the mandate of heaven? Well, it was basically just a big excuse for anybody who wanted to be a new dynasty to say,
"It's my turn to rule China." What? Why? Because the gods said so. Okay, I will question this in no way whatsoever. I'm the new dynasty now.
basically the Chinese believed that whoever had the right to rule would have the mandate of heaven. Hence, if a dynasty had the mandate of heaven, everything would be running just smoothly. However, if a dynasty became an aging dynasty and lost the mandate, the dynastic problems would start occurring. The gods, they were getting real angry. Then the mandate of heaven would be taken by somebody else who was fit to rule. The very earliest example of this was the Zhou dynasty. King Wen of Zhou, this good old fella, he was going to be a model ruler for generations to come and was called the Son of Heaven by his followers and his other people. During the rule of the Shang dynasty, he ruled over the Zhou people. His reign of justice and prosperity earned him his nickname and laid out the guidelines for what a Chinese ruler should really be. After he earned his nickname, his son, this guy's name is Mr. Wu Wang, you can see the family resemblance. He was able to overthrow the Shang dynasty and claimed himself with the mandate of heaven and cemented the Zhou as the new dynasty. In fear of revolts and loss of support from the people who they just overthrown, you need to support them, they used the excuse of the mandate of heaven. The gods wanted them to rule, and it was their place to do so. This concept would be used by rulers of China for centuries to come.
The mandate of heaven does not have much of an agreement today. The only use of the concept of the mandate of heaven is in the form of agreement. There is an agreement between the Chinese government and the people of China. The agreement is, if the government does not maintain economic growth, the people can revolt. This is, however, mostly unlikely due to the corruption of the Chinese government and their uncanny ability to be a totalitarian government that censors and blocks thought and information. Besides that, the mandate does not have much effect. However, the dynastic cycle, the cycle that the mandate causes, influenced the events that cause itself to be mostly obsolete. It influenced the catalyst of the mindset that caused itself to end. The catalyst is Confucianism.
This means to keep power is to keep the lower class happy. To keep the lower class happy, the mandate uses virtue of the ruler as legitimacy to rule, as the ruler must be virtuous to keep the peasants from revolting. This is how the Zhou dynasty got into power, with the use of the mandate and acting virtuous. After taking over, the Zhou gave the Shao announcement, or the speech that gave the idea of the mandate. Because of the mandate, being virtuous was important to rule. This is where Confucianism came in. Confucius's actual beliefs started around the late Zhou and early Qin dynasty. Although rejected by the Qin dynasty at first, eventually, like the other dynasties, Confucius's beliefs were accepted as they kept the mandate on their side. Contrary to Confucianism, legalism was harsher and more punishing, leading to a shorter term. Qin Shi Huangdi's dynasty only lasted for one ruler, himself, as legalism was harsh to the peasants. So when he died, peasants overthrew the dynasty for the Han dynasty, which used Taoism. In a sense, that's why Confucianism was one of the main beliefs of the dynastic cycle, up to the Qin dynasty. Due to circumstances and the Confucianism mindset, it gave a "we are the best" attitude against foreigners, preventing them from adapting and accepting Lord McCarthy and industrializing, leading to the Opium Wars, which led to China's defeat. Then the spheres of influences, nationalist movement, and finally the Communist Revolution. These events remove most of the influence of the mandate as communism takes control of the government. In conclusion, the mandate of heaven caused itself to become irrelevant in modern day due to the dynastic cycle itself.
And so the mandate of heaven disappeared and everyone lived happily ever after. The end.
Shoot! You okay? You okay? Oh no.
Oh no.
It's fine, I was already broken.
The video. Are you hurt? Are you hurt?
Yeah, I'm not hurt.
Yeah, we're gonna move this.